It is 7:08. Drug use is a health problem, not a criminal problem. There should be no compulsory testing of people who are arrested. There should be a completely different approach to drugs worldwide. That call comes today from a group called the Global Commission on Drugs Policy. And it chimes in, of course, with what the Liberal Democrats were saying yesterday. They're looking at the decriminalisation of all drugs for personal use. That's at least a potential thing that they might put in their manifesto for the election. Niamh Eastwood is Executive Director of Release, a charity that works with issues around drugs and the law. And Neil McKeganey is from the Centre for Drug Misuse Research and joins us on the line. Morning to you both. Niamh Eastwood, first of all, you, broadly speaking, you agree with what the Global Commission on Drug Policy is saying?
Yes, we welcome the report and the recommendations of the report. I think it's important to note who the members of this commission are. We're looking at former presidents of countries around the world, including countries from Latin America who have been most affected by the drugs war.
Right. So they fought the war and realised that they've lost.
Exactly. And people like Kofi Annan, former head of the UN, who are making these really evidence-based calls for reform of our drug policy. In particular, we welcome the call for the end of criminal sanctions for people who use drugs. Evidence from other countries has shown us that criminalisation is a waste of resources and stigmatises people who use drugs. In particular, causes significant damage in terms of the impact of criminal records, not least in the UK, where in the last 15 years we've criminalised 1.5 million people for possession of drugs for personal use.
Neil McKeganey.
Well, I think that I disagree with virtually everything that's been said there. This is called a global commission. It has no representation from Africa, India, China, Russia, the Islamic world. It's an assembly of former leaders who, when they were in office, didn't make any of these recommendations, and they're now advising that all countries everywhere in the world, irrespective of their philosophical base, their politics, their religion, should pursue a policy of drugs legalisation. It's deeply flawed, and the clearest evidence of that is that one of the greatest problems that we face now is with the legal highs, and the problem is arising because they're legal.
Niamh Eastwood?
Neil is incorrect in a number of ways, not least because there is representation from Latin America and from the African region. More importantly, it's not just the Global Commission on Drug Policy that's calling for these reforms. There are other leading organisations. So we've had calls from the Organisation of American States, again, a region affected directly by the drug war.
Yeah, but the point Neil McKeganey is making is that drugs do harm. They do harm to individuals. And when they're legal, they do harm. And when they're illegal, they do harm. And that is the nub of the problem that a report like this isn't tackling.
No, it is tackling it. It recognises the harms of drugs. It says that drugs are risky, and as risky products, they need to be controlled, that we don't need to criminalise people, that actually we have a choice. We can either leave the drugs trade in the hands of organised crime, or we can put it into the hands of government. There's no third option here. So if we want to reduce the harms of drugs, we have to look at the whole policy. And at the moment, we would say the policy itself is increasing the harms. The decision to criminalise people increases harms.
Neil McKeganey, how worried are you by what the Liberal Democrats are toying with?
Well, I think the proposal to take out of the equation here the contribution to the criminal justice system is deeply flawed. I mean, every country in the world maintains a criminal justice system which in some respect tackles the drug problem. This is a council from the Liberal Democrats and this rather lofty self-declaimed body to dismantle the entire criminal justice framework, and I think that would be a real major step back. We know that treatment is valuable, but actually a spur to treatment is that the drugs remain illegal. That is often the reason why people get treatment. They end up in prison because of the criminal acts they've been committing, and whilst in prison they get treatment.
Niamh Eastwood's point about control. You can better control it. Don't criminalise it, but control it through governments.
Well, I seriously doubt that actually the governments around the world of very different kind can well control the drug problem. I think if you say, to what extent do the governments currently tackle and well control tobacco and alcohol, I think that there are very few precedents that would lead you to be confident about the ability of all governments everywhere to be regulating their own drug problem. Actually, I don't think government should be in the business of regulating the drug problem. They need to provide treatment, but they need to provide tough enforcement as well.
Niamh Eastwood, final word.
Just quickly to say that Neil's just completely wrong on this. The evidence from other countries around the world that have adopted a non-criminal response to possession of drugs have found that drug use has not increased. And we looked at over 20 countries that have taken this approach, and there were positive outcomes in terms of health and human rights.
Well, Niamh's only favouring the evidence in support of her policy that her organisation lobbies.
Well, no, I disagree with that,
You've
Niamh.
both made your points very trenchantly. We're out of time, though. Niamh McKeganey, thank you, and Niamh Eastwood as well.